So we are back doing the tarot talks. You asked for some more, so let's give you some more, right? This is the path of Tav, the universe, the 21st key in the tarot, and the 32nd path of wisdom. Remember, there's 32 paths of wisdom. The first 10 Sephiroth and the 22 paths on the tree come to 32 paths of wisdom. So this is the 32nd path of wisdom and the 21st key in the tarot, the universe. So you see we got the Marseille on the left, and then I have Arthur Edward Waite's there in the bigger picture on the right on the left, Crowley's Thoth card in the middle, and the Golden Dawn card there on the right. And at the top right, this is again from the old tarot course I did. You'll see the path is lit up. It's actually the first path that we take in initiation. A lot of people think it's the Fool, but if we're going from the bottom, from the earth to spirit, if we're rising through the tree, we're actually going to start. So this is the first devotional path on the tree in the middle pillar, the universe, in actuality. So in the 32 paths of wisdom, the 32nd path is the administrative intelligence, and it is so called because it directs and associates in all their operations the 7 planets, even all of them in their own due course. All of them. So the study of the paths, according to Wang, doesn't start with the first card, the Fool, but with the last, the universe. And that is because, like I said, we ascend through the tree of life, working from our material perspective of below to the realms of pure spirit above. So our understanding of the more refined universal patterns is based on what we learn on this earth. So it's with this card that the serious work begins. The serious esoteric work begins, and that's according to Robert Wang, the Kabbalistic Tarot. You need to get his book. And as long as our divine consciousness is functioning through a physical vehicle, this is where the work begins, right? So as long as we're in a physical body. So the path of Tav, the universe, joins Malkuth, or the earth, with Yesod, the foundation. And you can see I've outlined that path again in the top right of the tree. It's kind of small, but I got something really cool I'm going to show you guys later with that, with the Thoth card. It's the first path out of the material condition and leads towards an understanding of the personality forged by the higher self of Tiferet for each incarnation. The 32 paths of wisdom calls this the administrative intelligence and says that it directs and associates in all their operations the 7 planets. Symbolically, this path connects the earth with the balance powers of what's called the microprosopos, represented by the hexagram, or the 7 planets on the tree of life. And if you've watched my introductory videos, you know right where that sucker is, okay? Tav is the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet. So between Aleph and Tav in Hebrew is the entire universe, referred to in Christian and Greek terms as Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. But Tav means cross, a T-cross, as well as one which is an equal arm cross, which is appropriate to its position in the cube of space described in the book of the Sefer Yetzirah. Now that book refers to Tav as the palace of holiness, sustaining all things. It is both power and servitude. And when considered on the cube of space, it is found to be at the exact central point of the 3 maternal letters in the Hebrew alphabet, Aleph, Mem, and Shin. The symbolic forms of energy from which manifestation was created. That's what the Hebrews say. Pretty cool stuff. Man, I mean, this is really cool. Once you see all the systems in one thing, and I've said this in the last video, right? Whether it's the Hebrew alphabet and what all the stuff means, the esoteric meanings of all the letters, or the astrological stuff in the tree, the geometrical stuff in the tree, the emanations of how creation came to be. And you see all of these systems kind of line up in this glyph. Boy, it's exciting. But I will continue on. Sometimes I get on tangents. I apologize. So the path of the universe is the key to all because it falls at the point where They all cross. Now, this crossing point, where these primary energies are balanced, is known as the sanctum sanctorum of the devotional mysteries. Some writers have even described this path as heaven or nirvana, meaning that here one experiences the consciousness of the greater universe, an ultimate reality by comparison with our sensory condition, and by the formula of, the Hermetic formula of, as above, so below, we understand that our experience of the completed universal pattern below tells us something about the creator above. Always, everything. So one symbol which can be applied to both the Fool and the universe, the beginning and the end, right? Remember what we just said, is the swastika or the Gamadian. Some people call it Gamadian, whatever. But in Kether, its arms spin so rapidly at the top of the tree. Its arms spin so rapidly that they merge and are perceived as a unified point. The whirling forces, right, in Kether. Now, this is the lesson of the Fool card, when that outrushing of energy comes from Kether. But on the path of the universe, however, it could be said that the swastika has slowed to a spin so that each of the arms is completely perceptible and are seen to be perfectly balanced around the central point. And this is the complete expression of the one in matter, or the one in the cube, or the one inside matter, or one in cross, inside the cross, right? So in discussing the universe, we're really discussing the world of matter. Most people have a polar concept of themselves. They think that they're body and mind, or body and spirit. So especially when you dream or meditate, the images which come to you are usually considered to be divorced from your physical body. But here's the thing. The mysteries have stated for generations that the cosmos is all mind. That's everything. And that the distinction between mind and body is one of only perception, not of actuality. Now, I'm going verbatim here through what Robert Wang's book, so you can follow along if you want. So, in fact, when we close our eyes and see pictures, what we are first seeing is the most refined form of matter. Like the astral image, the refined form of matter. The images and energy forms which are closest to the physical condition. So the concept which must be grasped, and it's a hard one to grasp, is that most of the physical world is actually unseen. Right? So it's for this reason that on the scheme of the four worlds of the four trees, the bottom one is called Asaya. So in all actuality, the Malkuth of the tree of Asaya, the very bottom of the four trees, alone is described as, in actuality, our sphere. When you look at just the one tree, where all of physical reality is in Malkuth. But when you break it apart into the four trees, which is something we can talk about later, we are actually in the bottom sphere of the bottom tree in Asaya. So the Malkuth of Asaya alone is described as our sphere of sensation. The idea is symbolized in the card by the seven-pointed star representative of the seven palaces of Asaya. To experience the path of the universe is to be taken to the gateway of the seven palaces. Some of you that have done some path working on this already know this stuff, though. The universe symbolizes a path where the components of the universal plan starts to become obvious or apparent. So without necessarily being understood, one may enter the Holy of Holies and encounter these forces in such a way that he is in them, but not of them. What's important is that, as opposed to all the other paths on the tree, the energies are all present in their full expression here and are self-balanced. This, as well as the idea that Tav is the central point of the Aleph, Mem, and Shin paths. Aleph, Mem, and Shin. Those are the other paths that come from on the tree. We'll get into that later, and you'll see how it all fits. But this is what is meant by the equal arm cross. So from the standpoint of practical, not occultism, but mysticism, the universe is considered the most important card in the deck. So because it's on the middle pillar, that's the devotional mystic path, right? So the universe may be considered the most important card in the deck because it's the point at which we begin the process of our inner exploration. It is the point where we step abruptly into a reality that may be at once frightening and reassuring, because so much of what we encounter on this path is of our own making. It's on this path that we encounter our own individual personality consciousness and all that is inside our heads, divorced from the security of physical reality, right? So it is the initiation of the personality into its own structure, which is a microcosmic universe. Now, at the same time, we encounter symbols and ideas which are of a greater consciousness than our own, and begin to see the ways in which our being relates to a total universal picture. So when you take that first devotional path, or the devotional practice, especially the middle pillar right here, the mystic path, then you'll begin to get downloads of things, right, that are from higher things, right? So this is a path which can only be successfully traveled, Wang says, by those who have begun to bring their personalities into a self-understanding balance. Those who have not will find themselves tormented by phantoms of their own making, and the gates will be closed to them. On the other hand, those who have truly come to grips with the life experience will find inner help and encouragement at every step. It is on the path of the universe that one discovers the extent to which the process of inner exploration is guided, and especially the very real protection and assistance that's given to us by the archangels. Now, if you don't believe in angels, but you like the tarot, you could just call them guides. But you do realize that you're being guided by things. Until one begins these exercises, the archangels are merely just an abstraction, something like an idea, something in which we can vaguely believe or disbelieve in. But Wang does give a word of caution in his book. He says, insofar as the universe is a path of entry to the astral, it must be borne in mind that the astral seeks to deceive, so that realm has a lot of deception in it. It's an illusory place. So a great many people believe themselves to be on the path or another when they are in actuality entertaining themselves with an extended fantasy. So we have to be extremely cautious in accepting any of the images which appear to us as ultimate reality of any sort until we have applied every test of reason and feeling to them. Now, there comes a time when we know, and yes, we'll get into the symbols on the cards, but this is the path that we're talking about here and what it represents. Now, there comes a time when we know that what we are experiencing could not possibly be of our own individual making because we are actually learning things. So when we are acquiring new information, which can often be verified or corroborated by research, that's how we know. And one way or another, a considerable amount of the gross must be sorted out before we come to the subtle. This is one of the most important lessons of the universe, a path which must be approached with the virtue of Malkuth, that's that of discrimination. And it is only through discrimination that we can place ourselves in the administration or administrative balance symbolized by the dancing woman draped with the Kaf-shaped scarf. Now, her scarf and these cards are shaped like the letter Kaf, which is a reference to the Wheel of Fortune, actually. And she's also surrounded by the animal symbols of the four elements and the riddle of the Sphinx, or the four fixed signs of the zodiac. But in Kabbalistic terms, what is represented is, again, the principle of the four united by a fifth, which is spirit, which is something that we also see in the microcosmic star or the pentagram. Now, here we probably will recall the earliest Kabbalists, as in the Sefer Yetzirah, the kosher Kabbalists, discussed only three elements then: air, water, and fire. And earth and spirit were added later. It was an addition, an evolved addition to the philosophy. So we've seen the tree of life has changed over time, over the centuries, to accommodate this concept. Now, one such important change has related to the 32nd path, which is in some schemes is the only path. In some trees, it actually is the only path connecting the sphere of sensation to the rest of the tree. So those other two paths that sprout out from Malkuth to the right and to the left at the bottom of the tree, those paths of Shin which is the judgment card, and Kaf, which is the moon card, are there while primarily bringing the number of paths in line with the Hebrew alphabet, and secondarily declared a direct connection between Malkuth and the two side pillars. So that's what I'm saying. This system is evolved, and the more we evolve it, it's almost like the more perfect it gets. It's really weird. But another interesting illustration from the 16th century shows a man holding the entire tree by the path of the universe. So we see that for 400 years at least, the essential interpretation of this path as an experiential foundation for consciously traveling all of the other paths, that hasn't changed, though the concept has been slightly mitigated by the addition of the other two paths. Now, I don't want to get too confusing, but I mean, I love Wang's book. I'll leave a link to it too in the description. But the principle that we grasp the entire tree through what is taught on the path of the universe is pretty profound and brings us back to the idea of as above, so below. And if you've studied this book, you will have discussed what's called the will to form, quote, will to form, which is an outforming expression of Bina, the sphere of Bina, the very top left sphere of Bina, the Great Mother, which is the origin of life consciousness, and which is Saturn in the exalted supernal realm. Now, this is the same energy, now completely expressed, found on the 32nd path close to the Earth. So it seems like Saturn just made a jump down here or Bina made a jump kind of to the 32nd path. The Great Mother is right there at the gate. The female figure at the center of the card is the fullest expression of the Great Mother, who is the Empress, actually. She is Isis, the Amma Elohim. She is Bina. She is Saturn. She is all the principles behind what we perceive as matter, the cosmic dancer who administers and activates the elements. She's also a doorway to and from Malkuth. So Saturn, who both gives life and destroys it, the great tester who rules both birth and death when we die, leaving behind our animal meat bodies, it's on this path that we rise like the dancer surrounded by a ring of stars. Isn't that beautiful? Now, all of the key tarot decks are agreed that the female figure should be surrounded by an oval shape of some sort. So if you look in Crowley's deck, here in the middle, this is a ring of stars, right? I wish I could use the drawing thing on here, but I don't want to mess stuff up. But you see it in Crowley's deck. It's a ring of stars, right, in Crowley's card. In the Marseille and Waite decks, it's a wreath. And in the Golden Dawn deck, the oval is formed by 12 spheres that represent the 12 signs of the zodiac, bound together by 72 pearls, which is the Shem Ham Pharesh, or the 72 names of God. Now, what symbolizes both the womb of the human female in that oval, through which the child passes in birth, and the great womb into which the soul passes in death, which is another Saturnian thing, right? So the profound symbolism of the Great Mother through which one passes as a doorway to and from life is kind of unfortunately minimized by some writers, including Paul Foster Case, who states that tradition claims the female figure to be hermaphroditic. Now, that idea, according to Wang, is unreasonable, but may be an honest attempt on the part of some Kabbalistic theocrats, I guess, to reconcile the femininity of the path with the magical image of Yesod into which it leads, a beautiful naked man. But moving on. So once you get into this, you'll see most people agree on the actual energy of it. But when it comes to details, a lot of people disagree. The bigger symbols they agree on, but the little stuff they'll start kind of disagreeing on. But the latter represents the eternal outpouring of the Christ Spirit from Tiferet, personified with Yesod, the foundation, before it passes down into Malkuth. The Christian mystery is not simply an event of 2,000 years ago to be recalled with reverence. It is a secret key to a natural pattern. The Christ, the Buddha, or Osiris, or Krishna, this force continues to be born into our world. It continues to be sacrificed for the benefit of mankind, resurrected and assumed. And this is, like the Yod-He-Vav-He, continual to the end of time, which will be the end of the race's need for sensory experience. Time is, of course, also one of Saturn's primary restrictions. You got a lot of Saturnian symbolism in here, right? So think about how cool that is, that this card means so much in actuality. So as long as we're functioning with the framework of time, an event including the downpouring and uprising of Tiferet force, we must have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Life processes run in waves or spirals which come back upon themselves. And if you've looked in nature, you will know this. You'll observe all of this in nature. So this is the natural course of what's called the Akashic fluid of Yesod. It comes outpouring from the astral, the Akashic fluid to the foundation of Yesod, that lunar kind of energy. But this again is the woman shown dancing. She swirls and revolves as opposed to her abstract form of energy, the Empress, where she is placed solidly on a throne. Now this spiral force of nature is directed by the wands which she carries, and they represent active and passive energy, each of which has two poles. Crowley's card shows these natural forces as more of a serpent kundalini, described as what is coiled in Yesod. But we have to remember that Crowley revealed a lot of symbolism, but he also made sure that he explicitly added more of the sexual forces of the mysteries to his teachings. So this is a reference to the primary sexual forces of nature to be encountered with the universe. Now, these are forces which we learn to direct in ourselves and onto which we impose the structures of Bina, the Great Mother, or the Great Sea. Water is very important to this path, which actually means, in a lot of times we read it, we don't realize it, but it means the Great Sea of Consciousness in its most dense and difficult expression. The 32nd path of wisdom might be considered a dark cave, filled with treacherous caverns and tunnels, some of which lead to the light, but others of which lead to the clip-off, actually. So this is the tunnel of the middle path of initiation that is kind of, if you look at it this way, this kind of initiated on one end by Saturn, but it's like almost, if you want to think about it, think about Bina or Saturn, however you want to look at it, or the sphere of Bina, giving us this crazy tunnel into initiation, into the innerverse, into the inner universe. As soon as we come out of Malkuth, or the earth, it's right there. Right? So, now I want to get into something pretty cool here. When we get into the Crowley card, I think it reveals a little bit more, which Crowley's card is kind of known for, but let's get into what Duquette says about this card. And what I want to do here is, well, let me just do this before I blow up the slides here that I want to show. So, yeah, do I have that? Yeah, I do. Sorry. I got all kinds of stuff pulled up on my PC here. So in Crowley's deck, it's called a 221, the universe, the great one of the night of time. The planetary trump of Saturn, the element trump of Earth, right? Like we were talking about before, Saturn's Earth. The original design, this is, I think according to Lady Harris, should contain a demonstration of the quadrature of the circle, an ellipse composed of 400 lesser circles. At the corners of the card, a man, an eagle, a bull, and a lion. And within the circle, a naked shining figure with female breasts, with closed eyes, and the sign of Earth. Right foot advanced, right hand advanced and raised, left hand lowered and thrown back. The hands grip each a ray of dazzling light, spiral, the right hand being dextro and the left hand being levo-rotary. A red scarf conceals the fact of male genitals, if you think that's what it's there for, the hermaphroditic energies. And it's also suggested by that Hebrew letter we discussed earlier. I don't want to get too deep into the Hebrew because that's a whole other thing. And once you learn it, it'll make more sense. So the Hebrew letter that corresponds with this is Tav, according to Crowley and Duquette, and it is the 32nd path, joining Yesod, the foundation of Malkuth. But here's the cool thing that what I like that Crowley did. Now, remember what I told you guys, or Harris did. Let's just say Crowley and Harris did this. There's what's called a luminous tree. So there are 4 whole trees that have all different colors. Most people that, when they learn about the base Kabbalah, right, they just see that initial tree. But there are 4 trees inside that tree. I've reiterated this a lot. And in those 4 trees, all of the Sephiroth paths are different colors. They have different energies. So, I don't want to get too deep into the weeds in that. That's a bit more of advanced stuff. We'll talk about that stuff later, though. But for the colors of Saturn, you're going to see colors like indigo, black, blue, black, and red blue. Okay? And for the colors of Earth, you're going to see citron, olive, russet, and black, amber, dark brown, black, and flecked yellow. All of those colors, as stated, are in this card. Lady Harris put the colors of those where they belong into these cards. And there's a quote here that says, "Treat time and all conditions of events as servants of thy will, appointed to present the universe to thee in the form of thy plan, and blessing and worship to the prophet of the lovely star." And I think Lady Harris said this: "The elemental cherubims are quite jolly, but the little lady has twisted and turned till I am insane with the wiggling lines, and I've done about 40 drawings of her." And this is what Harris wrote to Aleister Crowley when she was making this card. And when you get the Book of Thoth, Weiser has the universe card on the front of it. And I think for a good reason, because it's the first, path of initiation. Why not put that on the front? Most people think it's the Fool, right? You could go right, left, but if you're going to go straight up the middle, so to speak, this is it, the 32nd path. So the Thoth Tarot, and I think all of us have a Thoth deck, and it's pretty familiar, but let's get into what Duquette says. Familiar as it is to us, it's one of the most complex and mysterious cards in the deck. There are several elements in the card that I don't understand, he says. For instance, what is the black crescent-shaped object in the goddess's right hand? I don't have a clue. I can't find any reference to it in the Book of Thoth, and if Crowley explains it in any other writings, I confess it has escaped me completely. My best guess is that it is a sickle, and when I look at it, it looks like a Saturnian sickle to me. And it would make sense. That's not an inappropriate weapon for a Saturnian goddess, right? So it fits. It looks like she is sticking the sharp end right in the middle of the big eye at the top of the card, perhaps causing it to erupt in glories of light, but who knows? There are several other images in the card that he didn't see until he blew it up. And I got to be honest with you, I didn't see them too till I read his book. Until it's cool if you, and I'd recommend too, like if you get the Thoth deck, it's good to get the bigger cards so you can see the details in them. Now, here's Crowley's own comments on this card. He says, in the card itself, there's consequently a glyph of the completion of the great work in its highest sense. Actually, if we're going to just focus on Crowley's card, let me put this in the middle, kind of blown up so you guys can see it. There we go. So in the card itself, there is consequently a glyph of the completion of the great work in the highest sense, exactly as the Atu of the Fool symbolizes in the beginning. And remember, Wang taught us the beginning to the end is the Fool to the universe, the Aleph Tav, or the Alpha and Omega. The Fool is the negative issuing into manifestation, and the universe is that manifestation, its purpose accomplished and ready to return. The 20 cards that lie between these two exhibit the great work. So the actual work, according to Crowley, takes place between the Fool and the universe. also in its agents in various stages. So the image of the universe in this scene is accordingly that of a maiden, the final letter of the Tetragrammaton. So at 221, the universe represents both the planet Saturn and the element Earth. Same thing that Wang said, right? We already know Earth is in some ways a real second-class citizen in the Kabbalistic universe. Yeah. We also know that because Earth is lowest, it's ironically, it plays a pivotal role in the cosmic scheme of things. So Saturn is also very special. As Saturn, if you want to look at the planet Saturn as Bina's representative, so if we're in the sphere, or let's say the kingdom of Bina, Saturn would be its main representative. It is the only planetary sphere above the abyss, and in many ways, it is the highest of the high. And at the same time, on the tree of life, the path of the universe, path 32, leads from Yesod, the ninth sphere, and the last actual true Sephirah on the tree, down into Malkuth, which is really only a pendant to the tree, a cosmic dingleberry, so to speak, according to the Kabbalists, right? So how strange that the highest high and the lowest low would be represented by the same card. The universe must indeed hold many mysteries, and Crowley says that in this passage. The first and most obvious characteristic of this card is that it comes at the end of all, and is therefore the complement of the Fool. It is attributed to the letter Tav. The two cards together accordingly spell the word At, A-T-H, which means essence, or Atah, I guess, or At. All reality is consequently comprised in the series of which these two letters form the beginning and the end. This beginning was nothing. The end must therefore also be nothing, but nothing in its complete expansion, as was previously explained. So in the original description, a 221, the universe should contain a demonstration of the quadrature of the circle. I don't know how the hell they could do that. And Lon Malu Duquette says that too. Good luck. For centuries, it has been the quest of mystic mathematicians. Do you guys know any mystic mathematicians that like to draw circles or do crazy number stuff? But it's been the quest of mystic mathematicians to square the circle or construct it by using only a compass and a straight edge, a square of precisely the same circumference as that of any given circle. It would be the geometric equivalent of building the New Jerusalem, the marriage of the eternal circle of heaven to the terrestrial square of earth. But you can definitely see where the concentric circles are in that oval. Now let's hear this out. This is a cool story, and I got some more slides to show you about the symbolism here. So in 1882, German mathematician Carl Louis Ferdinand von Lindemann finally demonstrated that the perfect squaring of the circle is a mathematical impossibility. However, thousands of years of attempting the impossible has produced a body of graphic and architectural devices that have supplied the patterns and proportions for lots of temples and cathedrals and sacred sanctuaries and paintings, and we see them all the time. It has also provided us with the blueprint for the universe card, or a 221. The 21st key, don't get confused, the 21st key in the tarot, but the 32nd path on the tree of life. So Lon Malu Duquette goes on and says, bold seekers have also introduced into this quest collateral data such as the mysterious number that appears in the Old and New Testaments and the estimated size and ratios of planetary orbits. The mental stimulation and ecstasy such mathematical gymnastics induce can be addictive. Right? I could see if back in the day they probably drank a bunch of coffee. Nowadays, people take a bunch of Adderall and they just dive into this stuff. But it can be addictive to the point of triggering emotional instability. British architect William Sterling, author of the monumental work, now this is a long name, The Canon, an exposition of the pagan mysteries perpetuated in the Kabbalah as the rule of all the arts. Now this guy died most hideously while attempting to sever his own head from his body. Think about that. Think about that's crazy, right? That guy probably wanted to cut his head off because his brain started going crazy on him. You know, and I get lost in the weeds too. Gematria is cool. Notar Hakan's cool when we learn about all those ciphers. But when people learn it, then they go out into the world and they start trying to mathematically pull apart everything they see, right? And it's like they pop an Adderall on top of it, So it can make you crazy. So be careful with that. And Lon Malo Duquette says, I confess that I become hopelessly lost whenever I try to follow the logic and numbers of transcendental mathematicians. What I do understand is the aesthetic beauty of the figures such musings produce when translated into designs, especially the diagram called appropriately the New Jerusalem, because I cannot explain exactly why this diagram is an attempt to square the circle. But, he says, I will instead try to show you how it is constructed and allow you to decide whether or not to pursue its mysteries further. But please, don't go crazy. Try not to lose your head. People will do that. They'll pick apart stuff till the end until they're going nuts. But the New Jerusalem and the Universe Trump both start with a special oval called, and we know what it is, a vesica Pisces, or a fish bladder, right? We see the vesica in two places on the universe card, as the large oval that touches the top, bottom, and the sides of the card, and as the eye at the top right section of the large vesica. The small eye vesica appears either to be projecting the images onto the card or drawing them all back inside itself, which is exactly what that energy represents. This tunnel or gateway that draws in and out of life and death. So it is very easy to create a vesica Pisces, and the beginning of its construction employs Kabbalistic concepts that by now, hopefully all of us are pretty familiar with. So let me get these slides out. So I'll show you how cool this is. Because people, there's not just, how we talked about the supernals or the triangles. Well, also, if you just do this in circles, kind of like, how people do the flower of life. It's the same thing. So look here. When you emanate from Chokma, or from Kether to Chokma, you begin the vesica by drawing two circles. So let's just say one circle is Kether and the other one's Chokma, right? So you have two circles of equal size that intersect at their centers, and I don't know if I centered this correctly, but I tried. The first circle is Kether, which unites with its reflection Chokma to create the opening or the yoni of the mother Bina, from which all creation is issued. The vesica was the floor plan of many cathedrals of the late Renaissance and early periods, structures that were nearly all dedicated to Our Lady, right? So what you do next after that is you draw another circle, which completes the first supernal triad at the top of the tree. So I showed that in the image. 1, 2, 3 on the tree of life. You draw another circle in the middle, right? So enclose the center of the vesica inside a third circle the same size as the other two. So it's though the supernal triad is made and positioned the vesica, which kind of looks like an eye, doesn't it? In the middle there. Hold on, let me see if I can... Yeah, like that. It kind of looks like an eye, if you take away that. So this is, if you think about the Great Mother, right? The Great Birth Canal, the first supernal triangle, the Elohim. We're still above the abyss, too, before any energies really start manifesting. Now, when you get to the 4, though, which is the 4th sphere, remember how it manifests in the lightning flash from... I could draw this, but I'm afraid I'm going to mess things up. Let me see if I can draw the lightning flash and erase it here. Draw. Yeah, let's try to draw it. I wonder if I can make it smaller, though. Maybe? I don't know. It's not going to work. It's not working. All right, well, whatever. I tried. A little dot here. Yeah, there we go. That's how you make a line. So it goes from Kether to Chokma, and then from Chokma to Bina, and then you have your first supernal triad on the tree, right? And also in circles makes bina. And it makes this vesica. Makes a lot of sense, right? Let me see if I can erase this. Eraser. I've never done this before, so I'm kind of nervous. Boop. 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 Cool. Now, so we know things manifest in this kind of, in the lightning flash, right? So things actually manifest like this through the tree. And my lines are going to be like way off here, but whatever. That's called the lightning flash, right, of creation, or the flaming sword. Boop. And then it just keeps going down until it gets to Malkuth, the earth. So that's the flaming sword of manifestation. Okay, so now, maybe I can leave that up there, hopefully. So now when we go to the fourth sphere of Chesed, let's get back to the slides here. Maybe I can just, how do I erase all this? I'm sorry, guys. I'm terrible at this. Okay. So now when we go to the fourth sphere, of Chesed, we put a square. So when we enclose the vesica with a square, that's the same length and breadth as the length of the vesica. Okay. Now, this is all in Lon Maludiket's book. I just added so you can kind of see how it's emanating down the tree. Right? Now, if we draw 4 more circles at the diagonal corners whose centers intersect the great circle and whose circumference touches the vesica as well, we add what? Through the lightning flash, 4 more spheres. Boom. That's what we get. And then finally, if you enclose it with another square, you get this. Boom. Look at that. Beautiful, right? There it is. This is the basic model for both the traditional and Crowley-Harris versions of the universe. You'll recognize this design as the pattern for lots of paintings, stained glass windows that depict Christ or the Holy Family or the Trinity, surrounded by the images of the angel or man, the lion, the bull, and the eagle. So in the Harris-Crowley card, the 4 cherubic creatures are placed in the corners in the same manner as in the Hierophant card. And for reasons that have never been clear to Lon Maluduket, Christian believers, I kind of have a clue though, we can study that later, but Christian believers are told that these creatures represent respectively the 4 evangelists, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. The Jews recognize them as the symbol for the 4 tribes of Israel, right? Let's go back so you can see the actual card here on the corners there. So the Jews recognize them as symbols for the 4 tribes of Israel who are assigned the corner positions in the camp of the Israelites, the man of the tribe of Reuben, the lion of the tribe of Judah, the bull of Ephraim, and the eagle of Dan. But we, of course, recognize them as the 4 cherubic beasts, which kind of give us the old riddle of the Sphinx, right? So look, check this out. What is the universe card really? Is the middle path doorway to initiation that shows us the as above, so below. It shows us all of the energies from the Great Mother down to the, I guess you could say, the Princess Virgin of Earth. It opens up in that shape for a reason. And people know that Arthur Edward Waite hid a lot of stuff too, right? I think somebody said that in the YouTube chat on the last video of the devil. Now, so even the original description states the vesica should be an ellipse. Let's pull Crowley's card back up because it's the most revealing. So even though the original description states the vesica should be an ellipse composed of 400 lesser circles, a reference to the Hebrew letter Tav assigned to this card, which enumerates, the Tav letter actually enumerates to 400. Lady Harris does well to give us 72 circles. And yes, Lon Malo Duquette said he counted them. There are actually 72 circles inside of there, which represent what? The Shem Ham Faresh, the 72 names of God. Which, to him, also provocatively suggests, to him at least, the rib skeleton of an infinitely huge serpent. But I think it's the same thing as the other card, the Shem Ham Faresh, right? So now that we know that Lady Harris gives it the old college try to squaring the circle, let's get our magnifying glass and start picking this card apart. You want to? If you made it this long, you might as well. Look at the wonderful things that she puts inside it. At the bottom point of the vesica is a skeletal structure that looks like a bit of a blueprint of a building. You guys see that? Can I pull my pen out here? This is so cool. I didn't even know I could use this. I'm going to put a little arrow right here. This thingy right here. I actually put my arrow over it. What in the hell? This thing right here. That thing. There we go. See that? So, at the bottom of the point of the Vesica Pisces is a skeletal structure that looks like a bit of a blueprint of a building. I'm going to erase this so you can see it now that you've seen it. That is exactly what it is. It is the house of matter. If the structure were projected in 3 dimensions, we would see a 4-sided building, and that each of the tiny vertical lines represent one of the 92 known elements. They got pretty detailed in here, right? That kind of does represent the earth. They are ingeniously arranged in hierarchical order and joined by a series of diagonal lines that form a diagram of the chemical building blocks of the material universe. So remember, back then there were 92 elements when they made this card. Now, the model for this design first appeared in The Basis of Modern Science by J.W.N. Sullivan. Impressive as this is, Duquette says, Harris superimposes it upon a structure even more magnificent and mysterious. If you look carefully, you will see that Sullivan's House of Matter is projected upon the largest of 3 pyramids, suggestive of those at the Giza complex. Now, those pyramids are back behind there. You got to really blow the card up to see them, but they're back there. Like the Great Pyramid at Giza, the apex of the large pyramid in the center of Harris's drawing is also covered with finishing stones, making it appear to swell a bit at the top. You guys see that pyramid back there now? Behind the skeletal structure? Very cool, right? I love art like that. It's so cool. So Crowley makes no reference to these pyramids in any of his books, and I'm pretty sure this was probably Harris's idea, or they hid them and just didn't say anything. And Lon Malo Duquette says, and my poor mind boggles at the possible implications, but he does mention something we can't see. At least I can't see it. So he goes on to say, in the center, a wheel of light initiates the form of the tree of life, showing the 10 principal bodies of the solar system. But this tree is not visible except to those of pure heart. I don't see a tree either, but he could be referring to the body of the lady, because we know the body superimposes upon the tree too. But Lon Malo Duquette says this. He goes, well, I guess I'm busted. Emperor Lon has no clothes, as if I really need the Master Therion to tell me I'm not wholly pure of heart. I'm really not surprised. I can't see the damn tree of life in the center of this card. But what he can see, and it's in another card too, we'll talk about that later, but what he can see is a beautiful green sphere upon which sits a complex Mobius strip. Actually, it's not that complex, if you know what a Mobius strip. It's just a regular Mobius strip made from 3 half twists rather than just one. So yes, I made one to be sure. He says, the endlessness of a Mobius strip makes it a perfect and beautiful glyph of the infinite, and it is my guess that Lady Harris replaced Crowley's invisible tree of life with this brilliantly appropriate device. The main feature of the card is beautiful, little Lady Crowley refers to in this passage. Remember, there's like this little story in the Book of Thoth thing. In the present card, she is represented as a dancing figure. In her hands, she manipulates the radiant spiral force, the active and passive, each possessing its dual polarity. Her dancing partner is shown as Heru Raha of a 224. Really? Now, think about that Mobius twist, too. What do we do in the tree and the supernals? It reflects upon itself. How many times? 3. So it's kind of cool that they put that Mobius strip back there, because that's exactly what the tree does in the 3 triads. But let's go into Crowley's beautiful poetry here. Is she Nuit, Babylon, goddess of the sphere of Saturn, or Bina, or is she the virgin princess of the sphere of Earth, Malkuth? She is in truth both the great mother and the virgin daughter of eternity. Also, you guys, I want you to remember, too, when it comes to the Great Mother, when you hear that in the tarot, remember that also the queens go into the Tree of Life in Bina. All of the queens land in Bina, where the Great Mother is, too. Just want you to remind you of that. And the princesses all land where? In the sphere of Malkuth on the earth. I'm just throwing that out there, so when you start putting this all together, it'll really start to make sense to you, okay? So is she the virgin princess of the sphere of Earth, Malkuth? She is in truth both the great mother and the virgin daughter of eternity. One could possibly serve as the model for this goddess, who is at once the beginning and the end of all things and in between. What vision could have emboldened Lady Harris to give such a solid form to this formless and eternal process? And here's, I think, what she says. This is what she says. On the afternoon of December 6th in 1909, between the hours of 2 and 4:15 p.m. in a lonely valley of fine sand in the desert near Bosada, North Africa, Aleister Crowley, accompanied by the poet Victor Neuberg, who served as his servant and magical scribe, crossed the abyss and experienced the terrible vision of the 10th Enochian ether. The details of this ordeal are chronicled in the Vision and the Voice book and remain the central feature of one of the most breathtaking and remarkable magical visions ever recorded. The next evening, December 7th, 1909, between 9:30 and 11:10 p.m., while his consciousness still thrilled with the bliss of the magical plateau, he experienced the vision of the next ether, the 9th. So he was doing Enochian magic, going through these ethers, right? I have exerted a large portion of that vision because I believe that there is nothing I or anyone else could say about a 221, the universe card, that could be more profound or relevant than this. It is nothing less than an account of a face-to-face encounter with the goddess of a 221, the universe. And this is what Crowley says, she has very deep eyelids and long lashes. Her eyes are closed or nearly closed. It's impossible to say anything about her. She's naked. Her whole body is covered with fine gold hairs that are the electric flames that are the spears of mighty and terrible angels whose breastplates are the scales of her skin. And the hair of her head that flows down to her feet is the very light of God himself. Of all the glories beheld by the seer in the ethers, there is not one which is worthy to be compared with her littlest fingernail. For although he may not partake of the ether without the ceremonial preparations, even the beholding of this ether from afar is like the partaking of all the former ethers. The seer is lost in wonder, which is peace. And the ring of the horizon above her is a company of glorious archangels with joined hands that stand and sing, "This is the daughter of Babylon, the beautiful, that she hath borne into the Father of all, and into all hath she borne her. This is the daughter of the King, this is the Virgin of eternity. This is she that the Holy One hath wrested from the giant time." Saturn, right? "And the prize of them that have overcome space." Saturn. "This is she that is set upon the throne of understanding. Holy, holy, holy is her name, not to be spoken among men. For Kore they have called her, and Malka, and Betula, and Persephone. And the poets have feigned songs about her, and the prophets have spoken vain things, and the young men have dreamed vain dreams. But this is she, that immaculate, the name of whose name may not be spoken. Thought cannot pierce the glory that defeateth her, that defendeth her. For thought is smitten dead before her presence. Memory is blank, and in the most ancient of books, magic are neither words to conjure her, nor adorations to praise her. Will bends like a reed in the tempests that sweep the borders of her kingdom, and imagination cannot figure so much as one petal of the lilies whereon she standeth in the lake of crystal in the sea of glass. This is she that hath beckoned her hair with 7 stars, the 7 breaths of God that move and thrill its excellence, and she hath tied her hair with 7 combs. See her head? Whereupon are written the 7 secret names of God that are not known even to the angels, or of the archangels, or of the leader of the armies of the Lord. Holy, holy, holy art thou, and blessed be thy name forever, unto whom the aeons are but the pulsings of thy blood. Well, he gets deep with that poetry, doesn't he? Pretty deep. So here at the end of Lon's discussion about this card, of at 221 on the lowest path on the tree of life, is especially appropriate that we remember our holy guardian angel, because whether we are aware of it or not, whether we have achieved knowledge and conversation with that angel, or however you want to look at it, with your guide, the main one, or have just begun our initiatory journey, which is what we do here in the Path of the Universe and Tav, we are helped at every step of the way. So in the Wake world, at the very beginning of Lola's trip up the Tree of Life, she's frightened when she and her fairy prince, according to the story, which is actually her holy guardian angel, that's what he represents. But when she and her fairy prince first enter this path, Path 32, the path of Tav and the universe, Crowley describes how her guardian angel comforts her and gives her the best advice anyone on the initiatory path can receive. So he tells her, the angel says to the girl, "Come on. This is only the servants' hall. Nearly everybody stays there all their lives and never leaves it." And I said, "Kiss me." So he said, "Every step you take is only possible when you say that." Ah, isn't that sweet? So I think, in my opinion, this is kind of why I like Crowley's deck. When I say read and say all this stuff, don't think I'm a massive fan of Crowley. But according to the symbolism of what it actually stands for, I think Crowley and Harris did a great job. And if you notice, most of these decks were done by a man and a woman, so that makes it magical because you got masculine and feminine. More than likely, and I think this is exactly what happened, Crowley told the woman, these are the symbols that I want in the card. Make sure these are in the card. And then the female, the woman, Lady Harris, beautifully puts them in the card. Arthur Edward Waite's deck does have some blinds in it, but Crowley's deck doesn't. But the relationship between the Fool and the universe, the beginning and the end, and the doorway of the middle path of initiation is what I really wanted to kind of express here, right? It's kind of like passing through the veil. If you go through these slides, and I think I wrote that on these slides, actually, if we go back through them. So as you're coming down the tree and through the lightning flash, right, you have the first line that makes the 2 circles, then the 3 circles, and that makes your vesica there. And this is the Great Mother. Then the Great Mother, the first supernal, crosses the abyss, right? Then you have the square, which perfectly represents when you try to square the circle. It doesn't really work, but this is as close as you're going to get. Now, symmetrically, but when you come into Chesed, that's the 4th sphere, and the square is the geometric shape of the 4th sphere. You add 4 more circles or spheres to the corners where the cherubic beasts lie, right? The fixed signs of the zodiac. And there you have it, right? You have the universe, that portal. It's like a portal. It's the middle path gateway. Anyways, I think it's really cool. And look, we've only talked about 2 cards. I started with the devil because I wanted to start with fear, because a lot of people are afraid of all of this side of the tarot. I've figured it out. Not everybody. Some people are fascinated, but some people are like truly afraid of learning the deeper meanings of these cards and what they are originally kind of designed for, what the symbols mean. When you look at Crowley's cards, you're always going to see symbols that represent these, whatever it corresponds to on the tree. If it's a path, it's going to correspond to, it'll have the colors of that path, it'll have the Hebrew meanings of that path, the initiatory processes of that path, the astrological correspondences of that path. If it's a card like, say, the 1 through 10s or the court cards, and it lands on a sphere, not a path, it's going to represent that sphere, where and which tree that it belongs to, right? We'll get into all that stuff later, but I just kind of wanted to, I think I'm going to keep making these videos if you guys still want me to. But keep in mind, while I'm making these videos, that essentially I'm going through the books that taught me these things. That's all I'm doing. And you can get those books and the links in the description. But next we'll do, well, let's just say the next path. You figure it out. Which one's next? All right. Thanks for watching.